Test. Can you hear me? Hello? I'm here, I think. Okay. Well, good morning. It's good to see you. It's always great to be worshiping with you. I wanted to start today off with a story. Once upon a time, there was a man. He was very rich. And he just couldn't understand or fathom the idea that you could not take anything with you when you die. So he got all these gold coins together in a treasure chest and made sure that was buried with him when he died. Well, he got up to heaven, and he was, lo and behold, surprised and happy to find that the treasure chest made it with him. And so he's happily carrying this treasure chest with him, and he sees St. Peter at the gate and says, "Hey, St. Peter," and Peter tells him this, "Why'd you bring paving stones with you?" Right? Because the streets are paved with gold there. And to kind of give you, there's another story, and it's rather similar. Another man died, and he went to heaven, and he gets to see St. Peter, and it's all great, and it's wonderful. And so he and St. Peter are walking down, and there's mansions there, because Jesus promised us some mansions that he was going to build for us. And so they see these nice mansions. They walk by them all. It's kind of like walking down maybe Warm Springs Avenue in Boise, right? And he's going down, and then he realizes that they didn't stop in front of anyone, and at the very end, there was a little shack. And then St. Peter says, "Well, here you go, here it is." And the man looks at St. Peter and says, "Well, why didn't I get one of these nice houses?" And then Peter looks really closely at him, kind of leans in and said, "We tried to do the best with the money you sent us." What I love about both those stories is that it puts in a colorful and kind of funny light the idea of value over time. Now, I hate to break it to you, it's early on a Sunday morning, but life is 100% fatal. That's about the only common thing that we all have. And given that we all die, we really don't think about it that much. We really don't. Unless there's a tragedy or if somebody close to you has died, you just really don't think about it. And to make things worse, when you do think about it, heaven sounds really boring. We're on clouds, we're playing harps, there's music, it's really sentimental, and it sounds horrible, right? And I'm guilty of both those things. I'm guilty, first of all, of just not thinking about heaven. In fact, I remember a conversation with my brother where I explicitly told him, I don't really think about heaven anymore. I don't know if we can even count on it. And it's funny to even think about when I said that, because the Bible shows us that we should be thinking about it. And we'll talk about that more. So the questions for us today are this. One, what is heaven like? Because I obviously know and been there, right? But then two, what does that mean for us now? And my purpose for you today is this. One is to challenge some of you who haven't been thinking about this, like me, to think about it more. But secondly, to encourage you, especially if life hasn't been going exactly the way you'd been hoping it to. So first, let's think about what heaven will be like. Now, I don't have much time to go into detail. It's going to be very, very broad strokes. And I recently listened to a series by a pastor by the name of Chip Ingram, and he has a 6-part series on this, and I'm not going to do any of this justice, but that's kind of what inspired me to think about this and talk about this. So, I'm just wrapping it up. I'm not going to distinguish between the new heaven, new earth, and new Jerusalem when we're with Jesus in the millennial kingdom. I'm just going to smash it all together, and you can look it up and read for it yourself as far as the differences between those. But first of all, we will be in the presence of God always. Always. Now, some days, I feel close to God, and I feel like I can really see where he's working in my life, and I can see why certain things happen the way they did. Most days, I don't. Most days, it looks like chaos, craziness, and you just kind of hope you get through the day until you get to Friday. And then you wonder, why doesn't God fix any of this? Why doesn't God make things better? Why doesn't anything seem to improve? In 1 Thessalonians 4:17 through 18, It says this, "Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore, comfort one another with these things." And I'm sorry, I'm going to jump around a lot, but Revelation chapter 21, you should read the whole chapter on your own someday, but I'm just going to pick 2 verses. I think I have a slide on this one. Yes, I do. Can you go to the next one, actually? Yep. Oh, maybe not. Never mind. Go back to the other one. What? It's 3 and 23. I might not have put it in. So I'll just read it to you. So verse 3 of chapter 21 is this. "I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, 'Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God.'" And then verse 23, I think is really cool. "The city had no need of the sun or of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God illuminated it. The Lamb is its light." Now, these are obviously just snippets, but the idea is we are never alone. God is always there. You can't find a place where he's not going to be there right next to you. And some of you with multiple small children actually wish you could remember what it felt like to be lonely, right? I can understand that. But in general, we all have this desire to be wanted, to be in the presence of someone who values us, who thinks that we're important. And the thing that I think could maybe capture this, how wonderful it would be to be in the presence of God, is a peanut butter jelly sandwich. And the idea, Simone and I, hug each other. And when let's say we're hugging in the kitchen, and Kira's off playing somewhere. Kira's my almost 2-year-old daughter. We're going to hug, right? And then Kira feels like she's missing out on the action. So she'll come running over and say, "Hold me." And so we pick her up and we do a peanut butter jelly sandwich, right? You put her in between the two of you and there's a big hug like this. And I think you know what I'm talking about. And it can't possibly be comfortable because we have to squeeze her so tight so that she doesn't fall through the bottom. But she loves it, and she giggles, and she smiles. She feels safe. She feels loved. She feels treasured. She feels precious because her two favorite people in the world are right there snuggling against her, right? And will be her favorite people in the world for about 4 more years, and then that's it. But right now, we're awesome. And I sometimes think that's a glimpse of heaven. You can physically feel the love all around you, your favorite people in the world who think you're the best kid ever, all snuggled together. Now, for you guys, that doesn't sound great at all. Like, oh, this is horrible. But I think you know what I'm trying to get at. The second thing about heaven, we get to experience God's awesome presence. And I'm splitting this off from the always there because it's its own category all by itself. And Kathy did a great job picking songs today for us. She picked so many songs about heaven, and the last song is basically straight out of Revelation chapter 4. And there's a very similar passage in Ezekiel chapter 1 where another prophet tries to describe the throne room of God. And it's intense. There's a lot of loud noise, thundering, and there's beautiful colors that you could never describe. You can tell that the people trying to describe it are pretty confused, and they don't know what words to use. But there's just lots of color, lots of noise. It's really cool, and then there's these enormous, very strange creatures going back and forth, and there's worship of God constantly. And it's terrifying, and it is amazing. And you can read those chapters for yourself, but I have a good reason to believe that's not what we're going to be doing all of eternity. We'll be doing that for sure. But for those of you who think, wow, that's going to get old after about 2 million years, there's going to be a lot more, and I'll explain why. Next thing, we'll get new bodies. Now, that's a pretty good news for some of us. I'm 29, and my entire last year of law school, I slept on a futon, and I was completely fine. Now I can't sleep on my own bed without tucking pillows a certain way, without waking up with a backache. I can't sit in the car for more than an hour with my back hurting, and I had plantar fasciitis in my foot, so I couldn't run for 3 months, and that's why I wasn't chasing the kids on Friday. So I'm already looking forward to the new body. And in Philippians chapter 3, we see this. That verse talks about how Christ will transform our lowly body that it may be conformed to his glorious body. And I'm hoping we can fly. I'm pretty sure we can, but I don't know for sure yet. Next, we also get our own special house. And I'm going to read this one for you. It's in John 14, 2 through 3. And Jesus is telling us this. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. I like looking at houses online, and I think a lot of you here do too. And it's kind of cool to think that Jesus is going to be the carpenter for our new house. So that's pretty cool. You've got a house waiting for you. Now how about some more serious things? The next one is, there will be no more tears, no more sadness, and no more death. Let's look at some verses on that. Isaiah 25, verse 8. He will swallow up death forever. And the Lord God will wipe away tears from all faces. And then in Revelation 21, verse 4, says this. God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Have you ever thought about what your everyday life would look like if there was no more sorrow, no more pain, no more death, no more crying? I know for one thing, I would be out of a job. Because I'm a lawyer. And the only reason I exist is because there is sorrow and crying and death and tears. And sin, lots of it. And I mean, what would your family life look like? What would your relationships look like if there were none of these things? What would television look like? I think that'd be pretty interesting. What would the news cycle look like? The next one, and this is one I want to spend a little bit of time on, we'll have jobs to do. We're not going to be sitting around on harps, with harps on clouds. We're going to be doing something cool. And I want to kind of show you where I'm coming from on this. In Genesis 1, was Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit sitting around on clouds playing harps? No. They were pulling out their blueprints. They were drawing stuff. They were thinking about stuff. They were tossing ideas around. And they said, well, what if we made a giraffe with a really long neck just to give everybody, so they know that God has a sense of humor. What do you guys think about that? And then they bounced ideas off of each other the entire time. And then God said, okay, day 7, I'm going to take a break. God was working in eternity. He was working. And then in Genesis 2:15, a lot of people forget this. Work is not a product of the fall. Work existed before Adam and Eve sinned. Don't believe me? Let's look at Genesis 2. Verse 15, then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. And it gets better. Later in verse 18, and the Lord said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Out of the ground the Lord formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each creature, that was its name. So Adam gave names to all cattle, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper comparable to him. So we already see in Genesis 2, before the fall, before Eve is even there, Adam has work. And it's good, because this is still part of the good world that God made, right? And God also realized something that you ladies already know. The guy is helpless on his own. He needs help. And so he made Eve. Now, after the fall, work became difficult, but work already existed. And Jesus refers to work. In John, he says, my Father is always at work. And then he also says that Jesus' own food was to do the Father's work. So we will be working in heaven. Revelation chapter 22, verse 3, it says that we, his servants, will be serving God. But, remember, this is work. But there's no pain, no tears, no sorrow, no sin, no nothing. Nothing like that. So, what would that job look like? I want you to think about the most productive, most satisfying, most joyful job you have ever had in your life. Does anybody have one like that? Well, for me, so it's the most satisfying, the best job ever. You go home and you had a great day, you have a great feeling, and you're excited to wake up the next day to go back to work. For me, I was a teaching assistant once at college, and I had a lot of bright and eager students who wanted to learn, and I was just trying to make sure I was smart enough to teach them something so I could say something smart the next week. And it was so exciting. It was so much fun. And they wanted to come and see me during office hours, and they wanted to get my feedback on stuff. And that was by far the best job I've ever had. And I expect that heaven's going to be something like that. So for you here today, think about the things that you're really good at, the things you really enjoy. There's a great chance, I think, that that's what you're going to be doing in heaven. If you're great with your hands, maybe God's got a project for you to work and make. We already know what Mitch is going to be doing. He's going to be herding cattle. And we already know what Travis is doing. Is Travis even here? He's going to be making those sculptures for us, putting them around. That's what I want in my mansion. And then I've imagined this, though. I go to the job center, job department in heaven and say, so I was a lawyer on earth. What do you guys have for me? And they'll be like, we don't have very many of you guys here. Let's see. And so I expect for the first little while I'm there, I'll probably be at a temp agency, and I'll be just filling in wherever they can use me. But that's okay, because even at the temp agency, I'll have plenty of satisfying work. But I want you to really think about that and really be excited about that, because you're going to have a job. And it's going to be great. And maybe you have multiple. And you're going to be so satisfied and so fulfilled. And you're going to have the best boss ever, right? He'll know exactly what your limitations are. He'll know when you're slacking off, which I guess we won't do in heaven. And he'll know just when to take those fun breaks. He'll know when we need to go take a dip in the river when it's hot. I mean, he'll know all that kind of stuff. There's also status in heaven. Now, this is a strange thing for us to think about, right? Because we're in America, everybody's equal and all that. But there's actually a pecking order there. In Matthew 5:19, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. Okay, catch that? So the lowest people in heaven, they're going to be there, they're going to be in heaven, but if they break one of the least of these commandments and teach other people to do that, they're going to be kind of on the lower tier. Maybe they're going to have the shack we talked about earlier. But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great. Isn't that weird? Okay, I'm not going to dwell on that too long. Luke 13, there's the verse about the first shall be last and the last shall be first. I don't know what that looks like in heaven. And there's not going to be sorrow, there's not going to be humiliation or guilt or shame around it. It's not going to be the status that we think of in earthly terms. But there is going to be a first and a last, greater and least. Now, Simone and I like walking through nice neighborhoods. We go on walks, we take Kira with us, and we just like walking, and we also like houses. And one time we were walking around, and we were looking at these houses and marveling at how amazing they were, and we were trying to think of what kind of person could make enough money to live in something like this with 4 garages, right? What kind of person would make enough money to want to have something like this? And imagine taking a stroll through the heavens suburbs one day, and you walk through and you see these palatial places. You know, there's rock on the outside, there's granite countertops everywhere in the kitchen, and state-of-the-art everything. And there's those Wi-Fi thermostats, you know, where you can just, before you get home, you can tell on your phone how warm you want your house to be when you get there. It's going to have all that stuff, right? And then you're looking around, it's like, I wonder what this person did on Earth. And then you find out, oh, he's the janitor, right? Oh, this person, that was the nice old lady that none of you guys knew who always prayed for all of you guys by name, right? Those are the people who are going to be getting the enormous houses. The really cool thing about heaven, in addition to the job part, is this. It will be huge, and there will be lots of really cool people there. Now, if you're in the Idaho Capitol building, I know now's a good politics bashing time, but we're not going to do that right now. There are a lot of interesting people with interesting perspectives all in one building. I can literally go downstairs, talk to a committee chairman about a piece of legislation. I'll go upstairs, talk to the Secretary of State's office. Then I'll walk across the rotunda. I'll talk to the governor's office and the lieutenant governor's office. And then I'll go all the way up to the very top, and I'll maybe talk with the caucus chairman. It's all right there in one building. Then I go back down the stairs, across the street to the Attorney General's office. All these interesting people that we see in the news, we read about in the newspaper, everybody's right there. And the cool things about cities is that there's great food everywhere. I love spicy Asian food. So Mongolian is great, Thai food is great, Korean food is great. And so the bigger the city, the more my options are. So those are some things that are cool about cities. And we see here, and these are the verses that you were showing earlier, Dean, Revelation chapter 21. And he showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God. Her light was like a most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. Also she had a great and high wall with 12 gates, 12 angels at the gates, and names written on them, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. The city is laid out as a square. So this is the new Jerusalem that's going to come down from heaven. Its length is as great as its breadth. He measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs, so 1,400 miles. Its length, breadth, and height are equal. Then he measured its wall, 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man, that is, of an angel. And there's a lot more. This is a 1,400-mile cube. So, that's pretty enormous. But this is going to be kind of like the Idaho Capitol building, because if I'm guessing right, if we get to fly, we're going to go walk around floor one. I'm going to find Peter, and he's going to be joking about the time where he felt stupid and said things that he didn't mean to say. And then I'm going to go upstairs, and I'm going to talk to Elijah and ask him what it was like to watch the fire blow up the altar after the priests of Baal were unable to get any fire. And then I'm going to go walk over and talk to Moses. And then we can all find our relatives and our friends and ask them how it's been up here. It's going to be all right there. And there's going to be so much food. I'm convinced there's food in heaven. There has to be. All sorts. And just imagine all these different restaurants run by all these saints of all time in one place. Pretty cool place. The last thing is heaven is eternal. And I want... This is not the best example. I'm going to pretend for you that there's a garden hose. And I'm going to unwind it. I'm going to run it across this stage here. Now, eternal is a weird thing to think about. But let's say that this garden hose on the stage is a time chart. This is how long your life is, okay? Now, we're going to make a slit in it right here with a knife. That is your entire life. And I'm going to make another slit about 1/4 of an inch next to it, and that is the entire span of all human history. The rest of it is eternity. That's how huge eternity is. And it's even longer. It keeps going out the door, right? Because eternity is so long that no matter how terrible and how long the sermon is, or how long and how terrible your job is, eternity is so much unbelievably longer. Okay. So, eternity is long. It's going to be great in heaven. So what does that mean for us now? there are some very concrete steps you can take today to get you ready for heaven. 1, prepare. When I go to the park with Kira, we take shoes, we take socks, we take a water bottle, and if we're going to be there a long time, I take a diaper bag. I do not take, contrary to what you guys think about lawyers, I don't take my laptop or my briefcase so I can bill the hours if I get a phone call, right? I don't do that. Sometimes I don't even take my call. We're going on this trip called death. What are we taking with us? Well, first thing to prepare, I would make sure you're getting there. Make sure you're getting to heaven. If you've never made Christ the ruler of your life, think about it. Think about the garden hose and make sure you know where you're going. Eternity is an awful long time to be wrong. And even if you had made Christ the ruler of your life, it can't hurt to check again. Matthew 7 says this, "A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown in the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you will know them." Look at the fruit in your own life. Am I a good tree, or do I need to get reconnected to the vine? And just be honest with yourself. There's no shame in coming back and asking God, I need to be reconnected. I don't see good fruit in my life. Chapter 7, 21 and 23. "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, 'Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name?' And then I will declare to him, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness.'" This would be devastating. I don't want anybody here to hear this. So make sure you're getting in. That's step 1. But then, step 2, focus on the destination and do not lose hope. And this Bible verse is so good, I'm going to read it to you twice so you don't miss it. So here we go. 2 Corinthians 4, 16 and 18. "Therefore, we do not lose heart. Even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. For our light affliction," that's now, "our light affliction, which is but for a moment," which is just a slit on the garden hose, "is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. While we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal." And I'm going to just read that second part again. "While we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal." And this is by far the more difficult step. Now here's a silly example. Kira and I go somewhere in the car. She hates her car seat. So while we're on the way driving, we put her in the car seat, and she'll last for about 30 minutes. And after 30 minutes, she's going to start crying. She's going to start throwing things. She's going to be upset and angry. She's going to be a nervous wreck, and she'll just want to go home. Why? Because she has lost sight of the destination. She's lost hope. She doesn't believe anymore that the Burger King play place we're going to get to is worth it anymore. The joy of being able to go down the super curly long slide is not worth it. We're never going to make it. And she loses hope. And I know that sounds silly, but that's exactly what I do. That's exactly what we all do. We lose hope. For me, I work hard, I try to accomplish a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, I look back and look at what I've accomplished, and I'm like, there's nothing. I've done all this, I've tried so hard, and what? I have a well-written contract for copiers. That's about it. And I sometimes tell God, I think you're wasting my time. I don't think you see how valuable my time is. I can't be doing this stuff. We're like accomplishing nothing here. The destination is not a lot of things, and here's a list. Results that I can see. The destination is not recognition or prestige, popularity, a good reputation. It is not our comfort or pleasure or health. It is not our financial well-being. It's not a nice house, nice car. It is not socially well-adjusted children. It is not satisfaction or happiness with your marriage, with your career, with your children. Remember, we are not home yet. This is not our home. None of these things are our home. These are not the destinations. And we end up forgetting that too often. And so there's just a few groups of you that I want to encourage, especially this morning. Stay-at-home parents or single parents. Mostly stay-at-home moms, I guess, who's probably statistically most here. Words that describe your world are thankless and unnoticed. Now, I often think that out of Simone and me, Simone stays home with Kira, I go to work, I got the easier job. I go out there, all I do is an attorney. She's doing a lot more. And imagine trying to hire for this mom position. There's an awesome YouTube video you need to find if you haven't seen it yet. So the job functions, if you're trying to hire somebody for this job, it's director of child development, teacher, chauffeur, event planner, daycare provider for other people's kids, chef, housekeeper, janitor, chief financial officer, laundromat operator, coach, nurse, counselor, crisis situation and hostage negotiation, disciplinarian, and then prosecutor. Because sometimes Simone will tell me, Kira did this, what should I do? And I say, okay, Kira, I've heard the prosecution's case. What say you? What's your defense? And she usually doesn't have a whole lot to say. There is an estimate that moms, on average, work 94.7 hours per week. There's no paid holidays, and they're always on call, even while they're sleeping, right? Imagine a job description like that. Who would hire? Who would ever apply? There's no stock options, no health or dental insurance, and no 401k, and the physical strength required. This is going to be funny, right? Most job descriptions say must be able to lift 20 pounds or operate office equipment. This one would be stand constantly, walk, run outside with no breaks, be able to lift children, separate fighting children, pull the dog back with one arm while you're holding children on the other arm. And then the visual acuity required. You have to be able to see multiple things on the back of your head. Right? The possibility of promotion in advance is zero. No recognition, no banquet dinners, no company retreats, no employee of the month tacky picture. And I know you've all seen this. Your husband comes home, and you've been watching the kids all day, and he gives you the look. And by the look, I mean the dinner's not ready, the house is still a mess, and he's just wondering, he's not saying it, but he's wondering, what have you been doing all day? I mean, like, all you had to do for me to be happy was to keep the house somewhat clean and make dinner, and none of that is here. What have you been doing all day? Any moms know about this look? Right? It's there. And on the bad days, you feel like you are accomplishing nothing. In fact, some days you are so discouraged you think your husband and your children would be better off without you because you think that you are just screwing this up. Well, I've got news for you. Don't lose hope. Because Jesus is up there, and he's standing up, and he's applauding you and saying, that's my girl. And he's so proud of you because you get nothing in this world that you can see. And maybe you never will. Even when they're grown up, maybe they start going to jail. Maybe you'll get rewarded in this life, and maybe you won't. But you're investing in their souls. And you're investing in your husband's soul, even when he's giving you the look. And your work is noticed by Christ, most of all, but also by people in your neighborhood, people in your church. Even when it seems like the only time they notice is when they say, your child bit mine. Again? Right? Your child is drawing your child is peeing on my house. I mean, that's usually when you hear about it. But I want you not to lose hope. Because this is not the destination. Your destination is far greater. For you who are not happy with your careers, I have encouragement for you. Maybe you have a dead-end job. Maybe you have a boring job. Maybe you hate it. Maybe you have horrible coworkers or a boss. Maybe it's just repetitive and it's a treadmill, and you know nothing is going to get better. Or maybe you've never pursued your full potential because you're just scared that you can't. You're just scared that you will never, ever get there. And so you just don't do anything. Don't lose hope. The destination is not feeling fulfilled from your job. The destination is not the paycheck, the praise, the recognition, the appreciation. And if that's what you're chasing, you're going to be discouraged. The destination is eternity in heaven, an eternity that hopefully you'll share with your family and your coworkers. That's the destination. And if you're working this dead-end job or this stupid job or this horrible job with love, honesty, and a work ethic that glorifies Christ, this dead-end job is infinitely meaningful. Infinitely meaningful. It doesn't matter. You're going to be having one of those enormous houses in heaven. And Jesus is up there watching you, and he's applauding you every time you are reflecting him in your workplace, even if nobody else in the entire world cares. Maybe you're a single person and wishing you were married by now. Or maybe you're divorced and you want to get married again and it doesn't look like it's going to be happening anytime soon. Don't lose hope. And sure, it's easy for me to say I already got married and have a kid. But it's still the truth. If God's plan is for you to be single, I don't know if it is. It's still that slit on the garden hose. You have so much to look forward to. For those of you who are married, who are wishing you were single, Lord, just a bolt of lightning. Don't lose hope. The destination is not a marriage that you are fulfilled emotionally, fulfilled sexually, fulfilled mentally, fulfilled at all. That is not the destination. The destination is eternity with Christ. And the destination is trying to get your spouse there too. And there's a lot of other categories of other discouraged people that I haven't had time to address. But just don't forget this. We are not home yet. The destination's not here. The goal is not here. The goal is far greater and far vaster than you can ever imagine. Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for loving us, for wanting to spend eternity with us, for being so full of love and compassion for us even in our weakness. And thank you that all we need is to make Jesus the Lord of our life, and we get to have that eternity with you. God, there are people here who are discouraged. There are people here who think that their life is completely pointless, who see no results, who don't think that things will get any better, and who have lost hope. And God, I pray that you would encourage them, that you would fill them, they would fill their hearts with the joy that can come from looking to you, to setting their minds and their hearts on you, to remembering how you look at it, to remember that we are not home yet. In Jesus' name, amen.